welcome back to another episode of the Penscast Mailbag. Your two favorite buttes on the call tonight. As you can see, we have banished Garrett to the realm of the forgotten for this evening's recording. Once again, he had been a very bad boy earlier today, so he had to be suspended for this episode. So it's just Snail and myself tonight. And obviously, we can harp on about struggles of the Penguins, but I'm going to choose to focus on the good, and that was the exceptional job the Pittsburgh Penguins did with the jersey retirement of one Jaromir Jagr on Sunday. So before getting into the mailbag, I just want to commend them for what I would say was a very well done production, a very emotional production, and a bit of catharsis for the Penguins franchise and the fan base as a whole, welcoming 68 back to Pittsburgh and raising that number to the rafters where it belongs.
Oh man, what an awesome ceremony that was. Like, I don't know about you, Robbie, not to get weird and sentimental. I mean, sometimes I think I need to remember that this is a sports team. This is a game played by men. But man, what a job they did, and just like feeling so lucky as a Penguins fan. You know what I mean? Just how spoiled. And Yager is a great athlete, a great ambassador for the sport, a great human being. You don't get that all the time in these top and high level athletes. You don't get the spectacular athleticism and play, but also get the really humble, good. He's almost like a big kid, a big happy kid. It seems like, and he's just a special guy. Special evening for Penguins fans and for the game of hockey all around. He's one truly of the greats of the game in history, and spent a good portion of his career in Pittsburgh with Mario. Said no to a lot of teams, but he wanted to come to Pittsburgh. An amazing night. It was the mullets. I love seeing Sid. Sid. He doesn't need to. Sid is historically a guy that doesn't like to really talk about any sort of like. Let's just call it what it is. Like any bullshit, any extra. Like when he gets into the media and they start asking him dumb things. Like I remember in the Stanley Cup against the Predators, and PK Subban had the mouthwash going, saying that Sid was just like pissed he had to actually answer those questions regarding that.
Yeah.
But he on a night like that night, he's rocking the mullet. He's doing his normal thing with the Yager mullet on. It's like just to see like Sid and everyone get involved and make it this fun thing. Hell of a night.
Absolutely. And as a kid that grew up watching that era of Penguins hockey, he was such an integral part of being a fan. And yeah, it hurt when he left, and it hurt watching him bounce around and never make it back to Pittsburgh for another ride. But last night felt like a kind of like a chapter closing, and somewhat of a vindication of like Pittsburgh is always his second home, next to the Czech Republic. But it was just very cathartic, as someone who went through him leaving, and did for a short time hold a little bit of disdain. But as the years have passed, realizing how important he was and how much he loves Pittsburgh, it was just great to have him back. So a very well done ceremony, and just kind of like the closing of a chapter, after waiting all these years to finally have that number up in the rafters. It was a very cool moment.
Absolutely cool moment. It's about time, and I guess it's just a matter of time. The NHL should not wait 3 years to induct him into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot with him still playing over there, but I guess until that is done, I don't know all the roles, but he should definitely be fast tracked to the Hall of Fame once he finally does retire from playing professionally.
I was on Twitter a little bit. Robbie, do you have any doubt? Is he a Hall of Famer in your mind?
Oh my gosh, not even. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, he's the second leading point scorer in NHL history. He has a gold medal, 2 Stanley Cups. Absolutely no doubt.
I just wanted to make sure we're on the same
Oh
page.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, it's we don't have to get too much into it. It's a bummer that they soiled that whole evening with. I thought when they got off with that power play goal from Sid, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. He got in their ears. He kicked Reardon out of the room, and he's like, we're gonna run this power play. And then you just see those bad habits come back,
Yep.
and God, the goaltending has been such a bright spot. But I thought that goal by Kempe at the end, I thought Jari should have had that.
Yeah, he should have. Yep.
It was just a 5-hole, not a lot on it. Not they called it a goal scorer's goal, but I don't know. That looked like a Wednesday night midnight beer league hockey goal. But anyways, let's get to some questions. Let's have some laughs. Let's like some, remember, Robbie, we're team positive with the Penguins going forward. So
We are.
they'll bounce back. They got a big game coming up against the Islanders. We'll get into that after they play. That's a big game. They're going to get 2 points. I don't have any doubt about it. So let's have some chats here with Brian and our lovely listeners. Let's see here. I'm going to read off question 1 to you here. Brian asks, yeah, this would be going to you anyways. Goes, yeah, as you see, Garrett's not here, so one of us will read off Garrett's, whatever. You know how you all know how it goes. Brian asks here, you guys wouldn't take Craig Berube if Sully gets handed his walking papers? I think it's more likely that we have a new coaching staff before we have a new head coach, though.
There are a lot of guys I would take before Craig Berube if it came to that. I understand he won a cup not that long ago with the Blues, though I feel like that was a kind of a Dan Bylsma situation coming in midseason, lightning in a bottle, rejuvenated that team. Since that, in St. Louis, he's had very little minimum success with as the Blues head coach. I don't see it there. And really, if you look at his tenure as head coach with the Flyers as well, it was never anything that stood out to me as being exceptional. Again, I will stand on the hill that I think my first option would be Bruce Boudreau. If Sullivan should no longer be head coach of the Penguins. Berube just does not excite me looking at his whole body of work. Again, he did a fantastic job getting that St. Louis team to a cup, their first in franchise history. But overall, I am not a pro Berube stan. I don't think it would be the worst hire, but I feel like it would be a very unconvincing and just uninspired hire. Again, it's going back to recycling the same names. Not that Boudreau wouldn't be. I just prefer Boudreau's offensive style more than anything. But no, for me, Craig Berube would not move the needle much at all. So it would not be on my high on my list of potential Sullivan replacements should it come to that. Question number 2, staying with Brian here, but jumping over to Snail. He says, don't worry, Snail. Flow Bros over being big time every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
This is in reference to him, Colby Armstrong, liking his tweet over mine on the thread that it was on my thread of tweets to Colby Armstrong. So I'm glad to see where your loyalties lie, Brian. But I must say, reading over this mailbag, Brian came out just gunslinging, taking no prisoners. And with that, we will hop over into this question 3 that would be going over to Garrett, but he's not even here to defend himself. Brian's quotes me. This was me quoting that guy I went to high school with, who his dad was the guy who created Pogs. He was a dumbass, but absolutely fantastic. How you describe Snail's buddy Cole and our own, the basement-dwelling Garrett Vana. And Garrett did have a retort, and what he said was, I will be taking you to court for everything you own, suing for, is that libel?
Libel.
Suing for libel. I've never heard that word in my life. I will not be standing for this anymore. Is Garrett the whipping boy now? Did he go?
Oh, he's absolutely the whipping boy.
He's Gary Bettman. He started this whole thing. He runs our show. He does all the really hard work behind the scenes, and then he just he gets booed and takes whippings and lashings when he's not here. Yeah, I mean, dude. I think with success and clout comes the haters.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely give it to him. There's no doubt about that. So, his loss though. He's not the one. He's never here to defend himself. So, hey,
True.
we're just calling it like we see it.
And it's actually even kind of to add insult to injury. Like we know why he's not here, and it's not like we don't need to get into it too much. But let's just say like his work bends him over backwards,
Yeah.
and just gives him the business. Just they treat. Yeah, we don't need to get too much into it, but he's a busy guy it seems, and we totally have like sympathy for why he's usually not here. I would say like 90% of the time we know why he's not here. Sometimes it's like some absolutely heinous excuse and there's no way I buy it. I think he's up to no good, but anyways, he takes his lashings with it. I think he does a good job of it, wouldn't you say, Rob?
Garrett, oh, absolutely, absolutely. He does. He's always a good sport about it. I think between us three, we know it's all just kind of easygoing or fun
Gentle
ribbings.
ribbing. Yeah.
Yeah, gentle ribbings. That's just a little, little face wash here or there. Nothing too nothing serious. Let's put it that way.
No, and I would say his retorts in the group chats and whatnot they're way over the top sometimes. If you look at his reactions, he'll say things.
Yeah.
He'll say some things sometimes where I'm like, "You're going to be put on a list for that text message you sent us."
Yeah,
but
you guys, the readers or the listeners don't see the text messages, so it definitely he gets his chirps in. Don't let him fool you otherwise.
yes, he's not really the victim here. Like he gets his into.
Yes.
But yeah, anyways, we'll move on here. A little bit more Jagr talk. Question going over to Robbie here from Brian. He asks, "Did you read any of Rob Rossi's articles? I believe this was in the Athletic.
Yeah.
Any of his Jagr stories? And if you had one, which one was your favorite? Did you get a chance to look those over?"
I did read it. I'm a sucker for old time hockey stories, especially surrounding the Penguins.
Mm-hmm.
I know Josh Yohe had one a couple years ago now about what it was like at the airport after the Penguins won their first cup in 1991. And my favorite of this kind of stems off of that. Basically, after they won the cup in 91, Jagr made, I forget who it was exactly. It was like two other teammates and one of the teammates, significant others, go to Eaton Park. And if you're not familiar with Eaton Park, it's a local franchise of restaurants. It has like a salad bar. It used to be 24 hours, 24-hour restaurant because they were a lot of them were built near like highway interchanges, so a lot of travelers and stuff. They'd be open all the time. They've since moved to like they're open to like midnight, 1 o'clock, kind of thing. But they are known for breakfast. They just have a full menu of like literally anything you could possibly want, a very diner vibe. And he made them go to there after winning the cup, I believe. Yeah, 91. And then when they won it in 92, he made them do the same exact thing as like a superstitious type thing. And as a fan of Eaton Park, it was just it's a very Jagr thing because, again, you brought this kid over from what was the former Eastern Bloc of Europe, a former communist country where they didn't have all these chain restaurants and stuff like that. All this all these freedom to like all these different restaurants like McDonald's and Pizza Hut and all this other stuff, and he brought him over here, and he couldn't speak any English. I don't if you watched the video that they showed during the game last night, the one thing he wanted more than anything was like literally a Canadian tuxedo. He just wanted a denim outfit. And it's just a very Jagr story, introducing a kid that came from the Eastern Bloc to United States capitalism was a very funny, very 90s thing. So that's what stuck out as my favorite one.
There was a lot of good stories on that thing. I've heard so many great Jagr stories. I love that when he came over here, he just wanted denim and he wanted like Blue Oyster Cult cassettes. He wanted AC/DC cassettes, and he bought a sports car, and he was just getting speeding tickets left and right. He was truly just like he was like living like I mean he was probably out of like an MTV music video from like the early 90s. Just
and like
awesome stuff.
Kit Kats were a big thing with him, and peanut butter was a big thing with him, to the point that he actually had Jaromir Jagr peanut butter during his time in Pittsburgh at one point. So just very a very. I mean, there's not you do not get many characters like that in the NHL. You kind of think about how like reserved some of the big names are, and to see him just be like this kid that's just out here having fun in a locker room with like you threw him into a locker room with just a laundry list of future Hall of Famers, and then he becomes one himself. And it's very rare that like you have a lot of guys that are touted as these future greats. And when one of them does live up to it, it is kind of like a almost breaking of the mold, because more likely than not, even the most highly touted guys, they might be good, but rarely do they seem to ever live up to that hype. And again, the Penguins have had 4 of those guys in the past like 40 years, guys like McDavid, Ovechkin, but you also have on the other end, you have a lot of guys like like Neil Yakupov sticks out, but even like Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, great players, but never really the bona fide superstars that some of these other guys were. So
Totally. Good point. Yeah. There was one story on there that really stood out to me that I'll just go over quickly. Basically, Darius Kasparaitis
oh yeah,
had a great one, and he was let's just say he was nervous about being on the Penguins. He was, new locker room. I think there was
yep.
some pressure, and maybe he wouldn't have the best shit or whatever, or the best shift, and Jagr would come over and be like, "Oh, dude, you don't have to worry. Just give me the puck, and that's all you really need to worry about is giving me the puck." He'd give it. Sounds like he said, "I have a quote here. Don't get out of your head. It's just one game. You're not very good. Just give me the puck and I'll take care of it." I think that's just awesome. That's like, it reminds me of Gino a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Kind of that attitude of just like, the confidence is there. He's also saying it's kind of funny, but there's also like a very real aspect of like, you don't know your role here. Just make sure you get it to me and I'll do the rest. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. All right, question number 5. This is from Ryan again, and it's I'm a little disappointed with my guys. I'm assuming he means us. You asked for a rebuttal for running. And I gave a detailed response, and you didn't even go back over it. Sad.
Okay, so I just spent the weekend in Portland, going out and having a great time. So I don't remember. I don't really remember what were we talking about. So like I remember we asked for a rebuttal because he was talking about running 25 miles and maybe it was about the scooter thing, that like would he ride a Lime bike or an e-scooter if mail carriers were allowed to,
Something
and
like, yeah. I can't remember. I'm trying to find the uh uh no nope. He has so many questions. It's hard to find the one that.
oh wait, no, I know what this is. I have it right here. I think this is
Okay.
it. So this was a DM on Twitter because I remember he was like, "What do you want me to say?" So I'm gonna read this live on air right here. Brian says, "I'll start off by saying running and wrestling go hand in hand. It's what you do. So running is something I did since I was 6. Also, my dad always ran after he got home from work, depending on what shift he was on at the coal mine. So it's just something that was bred in me. Just some hard-working fellows, some good old Pittsburgh blue collar hard workers. It's in their DNA. Sounds like here. That was my words, not his. At the time when I would run the route, I would walk around 16 miles. So normally would do a cool 10-mile after work. And I'm starting to think I am demented, considering the reaction I got was the exact same as yours. Yes, he said he's built like a gazelle. I'm long and slender, but my knees, and more specifically my right ankle, didn't like all the miles I was doing, so I had to stop. As for the e-scooter, this is what I really wanted to know. As for the e-scooter, I would not use that thing. Wouldn't consider it.
Uh-huh.
Pound the pavement for life. Life is busy now with having a daughter, but I've been considering waking up early and getting in a few miles before work just so I can get that feeling again. So, yeah, he's a lunatic. But he sounds like he's just. I think I said this the last time we were bringing this up. His folks probably came across on the Mayflower, And then his other folks that were living here, they probably traversed the plains and the prairies and went on the Oregon Trail and then became gold miners in California. Like it just seems like he's got that DNA where he's like an energizer bunny. He just doesn't really stop. What do you think?
Hold on. Sorry, I need a swig there. I mean, I'm not a runner, like in the least, but I was in Austin. I don't know if you've ever been to Austin, but they have those e-bikes or e-scooters like literally everywhere. Like
the Lime bikes?
yeah, because they're Lime scooters. That or they're
is that where you just slip a debit card in and you put in whatever and then you can just take off? They've got.
Yeah, I don't know how we didn't take one. I didn't take one.
Oh, you didn't?
No, mostly because I don't trust them. I don't. If it was a bike, I'd be fine. I just don't seem to trust my balance on a scooter. In a city that there's people everywhere, and people just kind of like drive them like psycho. But I would prefer two wheels to get around more than two legs. Let's put it that way.
Here, but it sounds like he's just built different than we are.
He is just built different.
I mean, his dad was a coal miner. I mean, dude, how much respect do you have for coal miners, especially living in Pittsburgh, where you know that's a hard lifestyle.
Yeah, Western Pennsylvania, big, cool area. Not as much anymore, but we are very well known for steel. I had steel workers in the family growing up. So yeah, any of that hard labor underground or in a steel factory, props to you guys because that is I'm glad that you were able to create the life that we were able to enjoy by doing that hard work, and I'm much very glad that I do not have to suffer through that backbreaking work as well. Let's put it that way.
Oh God, could you imagine?
No, I literally couldn't.
Flow bro, salute.
Yeah,
to Brian. All right, let's move on here. Brian, I hope you feel vindicated. I hope that because I had forgotten. I'm sorry. Like I said, I had a long weekend. Let's see. Question number 6 here. This would be going over to Garrett, and he has a response written out here for us. Brian asks, he actually simply states, this team needs grit, and I couldn't agree more. I don't care what anyone says, this team gets bullied, and the only one that stands up against it is Sid, and that's a huge problem. Garrett says, I 100% agree with this. We need Ryan Reeves in the lineup. I would like to trade our first rounder for Ryan Reeves. Make hockey violent again. That's what Garrett said. I'm just kidding. Robbie, you want to read Garrett's actual response?
Yeah, he said, the problem I have with the grit argument is 99% of the time, someone wants a scare quotes gritty player. They want an inept black hole like Ryan Reeves who literally can't do anything of substance on the ice. The Penguins employed Ryan Reeves, true, and I don't remember him ever making that much of a difference with the opposition being scared of him. The Penguins' bottom six is already filled with a bunch of jobbers. Go tell Jansen Harkins to punch a guy in the face for heckling Sid. The Kachuk brothers are a 1 in a million exception to the norm. And yeah, the Kachuk brothers are obviously definitely on the edge of grinder, but have immense skill, so you can't really call them a grinder. Ryan Reeves can't even find the ice in Toronto, and that team has all sorts of problems as well. I think that anymore, if you could find a guy that has the skill and the grit, that's the way you need to go. It seems like sometimes those guys are very, very hard to find.
Well, they're hard to find because I don't know if Garrett knows this or not, but they're valued by their team. Josh Anderson, Tanner Jeannot, those are players that can, maybe not. I think Tanner Jeannot had a pretty nasty leg injury last year, but Tanner Jeannot put up like 20 goals in his rookie year and had I think one of the a top 3 in PIMS. Josh Anderson, another guy. Jamie Benn is not the player he used to be. I'm not going to stand up here and say Jamie Benn is a top 6 forward in the league anymore, but Jamie Benn used to be that kind of guy. Unicorn, bear, would fight anybody, but he could also he won the Art Ross, an embarrassing kind of, I think he won the Art Ross with 87 points one year.
Yeah,
nonetheless,
that was a weird year. Yeah.
87 points from a guy that'll fight Chara. I mean, come on. Patty Maroon, not that kind of guy anymore. Maybe he used to be at one point back when he was in, Philly, or not even Philly, maybe Anaheim, maybe Edmonton early on. They're hard when a team has a player that can provide that grit and sandpaper and stick up for his teammates, but he can also fill the net. I mean, those guys are hard to come by, and yeah, they're rare. Kachuk brothers, unicorns in the game right now. Like Brady Kachuk is a beast out there, but he can also, I mean, they're rare, man. So good luck ever finding another one of those.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if Jansen Harkin went and punched someone in the nose, but I don't know. There's a lot of problems around this team, and grit is definitely one of them. But I hate to sound like Garrett because I give him the most crap about this, but it's like that. If the power play was just better, I wouldn't really be so concerned about the grit right now. It's more like it's embarrassing and they're getting caved in all the time, and Sid's getting frustrated and having to go and do something about certain things, and it's like you don't want him out there risking his with his health history and all that, and his hands, those hands. You don't want anything happening to those hands of his. So
Oh yeah.
It's more of like, God, if the power play could just punish these teams like Mike Sullivan's been preaching his whole tenure here, then I could maybe still ride along with this whole like, yeah, we don't really need, a heavyweight or like a middleweight type of guy.
Absolutely agreed.
All right, I think the next question is going over to you, Rob.
Yeah.
And we are at question number 7.
7.
Brian asks, who's a player you still can't believe came to Pittsburgh via free agency or trade?
So I I feel like I just repeat this answer for like every question that it's something doing with trading in the Penguins. And it's at least in this era of Penguins hockey, it's Marian Hossa. Mostly because so that day, like that trade deadline, that would have been 2008. It seemed like nothing was going to get done that day. And again, Hossa was a true blockbuster trade. Like that is a massive deal that takes a lot of working pieces to get done. And I remember it was my senior year of high school. And I remember being like, I don't think they're going to get anything done. Because the trade deadline used to be on like a Monday and it ended at like 3 o'clock or something like that. So it was toward the end of the day. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to get anything done. And then all of a sudden I got a text from someone outside of school that basically said, it sounds like Hossa. And from that, I'm like, oh, if they pull this off, this is unbelievable. They're going to win the cup. And I still like, again, Marian Hossa, I wish he would have played at least a longer chunk of his career in Pittsburgh, because I truly think that he would have had just absolutely phenomenal numbers with the Penguins. But neither here nor there. His short stint in Pittsburgh is still one of my favorite trade acquisitions in team history. And it was just a clear sign that, okay, the Penguins are very serious about winning very soon. And I will treasure that trade forever. I deeply, deeply love Marian Hossa in Pittsburgh. So
Do you think the Penguins would have won it? Do you think that if they kept Hossa, that there's a chance that maybe on one of those other runs in other years, do you think there was another cup in store for the Penguins?
So I think the Penguins at least make the cup final in 2012 if Fleury is even average. That Devils team was not that good that made the run to the final that year against the Kings. Not saying they beat the Kings, but I think they're at least in the final with that team as assembled. So that one is more on Fleury. I think that they 11, 12, 13 was 13 could have been the difference maker because he could solve Rask. Rask was absolutely unbelievable in that Eastern Conference final. I think he helps them against the Bruins. Again, he was on that Blackhawks team that went on and beat the Bruins then in the next round. So I definitely think that they definitely get another cup with him there. I think they win it still in 09 with him as well. But do 16 and 17 happen? I don't know. Again, one of the great what ifs. But I would never trade 16 and 17 for everything, for anything. So I'm completely happy with how it all worked out in the end.
Where does Phil Kessel coming in via trade that Jimmy Rutherford pulled off? Is that a big one, or was that?
Oh, that's definitely a big one, though. I felt like that one almost felt like a little more like, okay, it's probably they're the favorites. Whether or not they actually get it done is uh, is up in the air. But I still remember July 1st, 2015. I still remember the Bob McKenzie tweet, Kessel to Pitt multiplayer deal or something like that. I still remember that vividly.
Yeah, me too.
And just just a phenomenal trade there as well.
I was getting up for work that morning, and I remember checking my phone, and I had already my NHL app had notifications already, and it was like Phil, and what a day that was.
Yeah.
That trade is kind of, I remember kind of like the drama around that, because people were like, oh, is Phil gonna even like fit in with Sid? Like, are these guys gonna be able to like play on a line together? I remember like a lot of the Canadian media, like, they were throwing a little doubt, sprinkling some doubt on the Penguins for that one, and then 2 cups later, yeah, I don't know, the rest is history. I quickly for this one, who's a player I mean, if you were to tell me last year at this time that Erik Karlsson was going to be in Pittsburgh next year, I would believe that. Erik Karlsson, like one of the best defensemen of his generation. He's not having the 100-point season right now, and I think a lot of people could have predicted he wasn't going to just pop off like he did last year when he was the guy on a bad team in San Jose. But it's crazy that you can add that to the list of players that have played with Sid. Great players to come through Pittsburgh, just in general.
Would agree with that as well. Yes.
Yep. All right. That's
all right. Question number 8 from Brian here. What do you think of those teams from the? What do you think those teams from the Shiro era would have looked like if Rutherford was the general manager instead?
That's a great question, and I love these what ifs. But to be honest, I don't know if they would have been a whole lot different.
Yeah.
The Carolina Hurricanes were an older team at the time, and they'd actually, when Shiro was in, if it wasn't that year, it was maybe the year before that they won their cup with Matt Cullen, Rod Brindamore, Mike Commodore was a depth piece, big Twitter personality.
Oh yeah.
Jim Rutherford is a gunslinger when it comes to tinkering on his team and getting trades and acquisitions done. Shiro was the same thing. Shiro came in and he wanted to really make his mark and build a team that was going to be a perennial playoff team for a lot of years. And I mean, it's not like he was coming in with, nothing. He was coming in with, he picked Jordan Staal that year in the draft. You had Malkin coming over and playing. He had agreed to come over and play. You had Sid. You had Mark Recchi. You had Eric Christensen. You had what's his name? Eaton. You had like what I'm trying to say is he wasn't working with just nothing, and he added a lot of what I think JR would have been adding as well, is just kind of tinkering around the edges, I like to call it, of your roster. And adding like character guys, glue guys, depth pieces, people that were good in the room, with a lot of these younger star players. You've seen Rutherford do it where he goes, wherever he's been, including in Pittsburgh, and Shiro was doing the same thing. So they connected on a couple of trades, some pretty big ones. I think you'll remember the Jordan Staal trade.
Oh yeah.
Shiro and Jimmy Rutherford shook hands on that one. And then another one that I think a lot of people forget about is UC Jokinen.
Yeah.
But that Jordan Staal trades, they got, I want to say Brett Sutter, but it's not. It was a Brandon Sutter.
Brandon.
I think he had a PTO in Edmonton this year. That dude's just been struggling from long COVID for like 2 years. So unfortunately for him, I think it's curtains on his career. But
does he really have long COVID?
Yeah, it was COVID related.
Really?
Or it was like COVID related. Yeah, pretty bad.
That sucks. Hope that thoughts out to Brandon. Brandon was never. I mean, he was never a superstar, but he was, in my opinion, just a very solid piece that eventually was moved out to help them build what became because he was traded for Nick Bonino, so
Mm-hmm.
a very important trade in Penguins history as well.
Yeah, he was one of those guys where if you have him at third line center, you're doing pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
good, pretty high level piece there for a third line center. But Nick Bonino just fit. That's a great trade in Pittsburgh history
yeah,
too. If not, it had nothing to do with Shiro, but yeah, that's a whole nother podcast conversation. We got
yeah.
Dumoulin, who was just the most underrated defensive stalwart for that team when it really counted. Um, and then, unfortunately, that eighth overall pick became Derek Pouliot. For a piece like Jordan Stahl, you'd hope maybe you would have. Yeah, hindsight, you kind of wish that pick turned into someone different, but neither here nor there. But anyways, yeah, basically to answer your question, Brian, is what do I think those teams from the Shiro era would have looked like had it been Rutherford? Honestly, maybe very, very similar. I think they both are great general managers who kind of have the same thing in mind. And I think the only difference really is Jimmy Rutherford has a reputation of being a lot more eager and getting things done a little bit quicker. I mean, I don't know if they would have gone after the same players. You can look at the transactions. There's a website. You can look and see who all the pieces JR has acquired over the years. And there's been a few blockbusters in there, but mostly it's like depth defensemen. He brought in Mike Commodore in Carolina to win that cup. Depth right shot D. And then it kind of reminds me of like the Ron Hainsey acquisition that he made for the Penguins in 2017. Just a good, solid veteran D piece. Those are the kind of moves these guys were making. So probably similar. Probably both would have gotten cups. Rob, you got anything to add?
Not much. I kind of agree with most of that as well. I think that they definitely had different styles, but for the most part, I don't see much difference between what we would have seen out of Shiro compared to Rutherford or vice versa.
Consensus is all kind of the same there.
Yeah.
So let's see. This would go over to Garrett.
G.
Let's see. He asks Brian asks, "Do you agree with Torts' latest comments about how young players have changed the league? Do you think it's a young and dumb league?"
Garrett says Torts is 65, the age of a grandfather, and he is right to say that the league. And is he right to say that of the league in 2024? He's surely entitled to his opinion, and he's had way more success than me, but it's just a flat-out dumb thing to say. Just say, hey, I don't really relate to this younger Fortnite generation. Hockey's culture is already rooted in a lot of toxic masculinity. Just say, I don't relate, and the athlete of today is different than the one of 15 to 20 years ago. The NHL needs more personality and flair, not less, but the dinosaurs still rule the roost. And while I agree with that, with what Garrett is saying, I definitely do not see Torts ever being humble enough to say that. So you can take that as you want.
I got one thing that I want to pick here, and it says that it's when Garrett said, what did he say here? He's had way more success than me regarding Torts. I don't know, but Garrett's a Pennsburg royalty. I wouldn't undermine that. Torts has a Stanley Cup, but Garrett is OG Pennsburg, so don't downplay your fame and clout like that, Garrett. But yeah, essentially, I agree with Torts though. I think I do. I feel like from the not to get too into it or anything, but like I don't know, just with the players doing the gritties and the Michigans, and it's kind of like shinny hockey out there, and players are demanding, they've never won anything and they want to be the highest paid player in the world. I could see Torts being like, that's dumb. That's not the league that I grew up in. That's not the league that I remember. He was, what year would it have been? I remember like Taves and Kane just got paid their like $10 million contracts, and I was like, they earned that. They won cups. They're the best. They're going to be great forever. But then it was like Austin Matthews, those Dubas contracts in Toronto. I was just like, you guys haven't won anything yet, and you're gonna just hand these guys the bag and screw up your cap. I kind of agree with Torts in a lot of ways, but hey, I'm all for. I like that there's these, that's kind of like an interesting time where you have these dinosaurs ruling the roost, as Garrett said, and then you have these young potent players with flair coming in. It's a good time for hockey.
Yeah.
All right, this question's going over to Robbie from Brian. Let's see. Brian says here a lot of talk that Sid needs to be traded to let him chase another cup, and hearing people say that irritates me. Have to think we'd get significant assets in return to start rebuilding, but it's just dumb to even consider. The only way I would even consider trading Sid is if it was with whatever team lands Macklin Celebrini. That kid is going to be special.
They're not trading Sidney Crosby. Let's just nip that in the bud. So yeah, that's not happening. As for Celebrini, definitely looks special. We'll hear more about him in the coming days and weeks with the draft talk heating up. Especially if the Penguins don't make the playoffs, and if they can find a way to get a lottery pick in the top 10, they will have they will hold on to that first round pick this year. But they're not trading Sid. I still until I see differently, Sidney Crosby is ending his career as a Penguin. He will be one of the rare one-team players for a career that long. And Crosby, he would bring in a gigantic haul, but you're setting the franchise back way earlier than it needs to be. So yeah, they're not trading him. Whoever's saying that, that would be an immediate just okay. Your thoughts are your thoughts, but I'm not going to agree with them. Let's put it that way.
Well, dude, Canada's ranting and raving, and they're coming out with articles left and right saying how good would it be for Sid to be traded from the Penguins and blah blah blah. And it's like these are people in Toronto or whatever, and it's just of course you guys are.
Yeah,
he's not coming there either.
No, I mean, he's not going to come hang out with you guys. He's not your friend.
No. He's probably not. I mean, I think he's very happy in Pittsburgh. I was watching a Penguins game from 2000. It was Sid's rookie year, so whatever year that was, and it was at the end of the season, and it was a power play with Sidney Crosby, Mark Recchi, and Mario Lemieux, and they went 0 for 4 on the power play against Florida, and I had this moment where I was just like, I get it. Like I get it. Sid's gonna be that guy. Like if this team's they go into a rebuild or a tank, Sid is going to be on the power play like a Mario Lemieux with whoever are, the Penguins' young cultivated prospects are going to be. I had a moment where I was like, that's what Sid is going to do. Like I think that's going to be it. There's going to be a couple Hall of Famers on the ice. They're going to be at the bottom of the standings, going 0 for 4 on the power play against a bad team. But it's all for the better good. It's a sacrifice. It's, you know what I'm trying to say? I saw it. I know where this is going. I don't think Sid's going anywhere either.
All right. Question number, I believe this is 10, 9, 11.
11.
Brian, with Jake being out long term, do you think we go for a big name at the deadline with his LTIR cap space and pull a Cooch special if we somehow get into the playoffs?
Well, that ship sailed because he's not on LTIR.
Yeah.
He's only going to be... It's actually worse. He's going to just be gone long enough to be on IR till right, I think, post-deadline just a little bit.
Yeah.
Unless there's a big step back in his recovery, which I don't see that happening. It doesn't even look like he's wearing a cast or any sort of, any protection while he's just walking around in the press box. They're not pulling the Cooch special. I don't even think they're in a position to where it wouldn't be the Cooch special. It would be like, I mean, it's just not the same thing like that. Like they're not even in a playoff spot right now. So they're actually going to be reeling for a month trying to find some production. I saw Mike Sullivan had something that just pissed me off so bad today. It was like, talking about how they're not getting the desired response out of this team, so we're doing a lineup shakeup, and this is what we think will get the best out of our team. And it was like they took Puljujarvi out, and he's rotating in on defense, which that don't take too much stock in that. But Pustinen's in on the third line. I think they put Carter at fourth line center instead of on the wing. it's like this team is just. I mean, what they're not going to go out and there's no big fish out there to get. I mean, we could go into Jake speculation all we want, but I don't think that they're. I think he's going to be their own rental. They're going to hold on to him. That's what I personally think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're going to trade him unless there is something happens behind the scenes where Dubas and him are talking, and pretty much Jake says, "I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get this," and then I don't know. I guess you just never really know. I don't think they're gonna get the return for him at the deadline with him being even just a little bit banged up. Um, I could foresee something horrible happening where what if they trade Jake Guentzel to Vancouver for JT Miller?
I don't think that Vancouver's in the midst or in the position to trade JT Miller at the moment. That'd be a very odd trade.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, JT Miller's signed 9.5 or what is it, $9 million a year?
Something absurd for like the next 8 years or something like that.
And if they don't see Jake being a part of this, and Jake's going to command around the same type of money, if not a million more, give him to Vancouver and let them deal with that, and they're going to give us the aging asset and hometown kid in JT Miller, and just watch him get pissed on the bench at Sullivan and butt heads with Crosby. That's what I see happening, if anything at all. If they go that route, it's going to be something stupid like that. That's how I feel. Hopefully they just hang on to him.
Yeah.
All right, this would be going over to Garrett, so I'll read it off here quick. If Jake leaves as a UFA, gets traded, who could you see being named the next captain once Sid hangs him up? That player, Garrett says here, that player is not on this current roster and probably not in the organization at this time.
I said basically, when I read that question going through the tweets just to see what was going to be on the outline, my head was basically saying the same exact thing, that the next captain of the Penguins is not on this roster, and I feel like they would go without a captain for a couple seasons until they thought they got the next guy that's going to be there for an extended period of time. Now, if Crosby retires and Guentzel signs a long-term deal and he's still there, absolutely probably going to wear the C. But if Gentzel's gone and like you have to think about who else is going to be gone at that point,
it's going to be Letang.
If Letang's still there,
he will be.
Yeah, Letang maybe. Now, if like Letang would be there and would be there to hand the baton off to the next generation, I could see Letang wearing the C, absolutely. But if those guys are all gone and there's no like the next one there, like not even saying at the level of like a Bedard or McDavid, but like the guy they're building around, I could see them going without a captain for 2 or 3 seasons or a year or two until they see what is on the table.
Oh yeah, when it comes to picking the next captain and this whole regime is gone, I mean it's going to be years of pain. They might bring in a veteran guy that, like you guys said, he's not even on the roster. They might bring someone in. Like I remember what they did in Seattle with Giordano. They plucked him in the draft, and then they gave him the C, and then he was gone at the deadline. And
didn't they trade him? Like, didn't they give him the C and then trade him in the same season?
Yes, they did. They traded him to Toronto. And,
yeah,
I'm trying to think of other instances of that, but I know it's happened before. You need a guy in there who will lead them through the dark days. It doesn't even necessarily need to be your best player, just a guy that maybe goes out there and stick like Nick Foligno. I don't think he's the captain in Chicago right now, but like essentially he is. He's not the greatest player. He's a former captain, but he's in there to just kind of rally the team. It's probably, I could see them naming even someone like that before they name like the future leader of the Penguins.
Yeah.
All right, last question for this part 1 of the mailbag this week, going over to Robbie again. And Brian says here that I don't chirp Robbie often, but that failed British accent was god-awful. Stick to Pittsburghese and Pittsburghese only, my man.
I didn't say it was good. I was just kind of did it off the cuff. I didn't even practice it at all.
I thought that was hilarious.
I mean, yeah, I know it wasn't good. No doubt about that. But, hey, I gave it a shot. Didn't work. That's all I got.
That's Hollywood, baby.
That's just a glimpse behind the scene of how we roll here at the Penscast.
Agreed. I mean, I wish I could have seen. I wish Garrett had his camera working because I wanted to see just like his reaction as he started riffing off the cuff there. But yeah, you never know. We got some. I really want to know what our pal from across the pond thinks of it because he's actually British.
Yeah.
What if he thought it was in? What if he was just like it was indistinguishable to him? He's like, Jesus Christ, he's British.
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think that. But, hey, you never know.
You never know. Well, that will do it for our part one of Mailbag this week. We'll be back, I assume, on Thursday. Recording on Thursday. It'll drop Friday. Got a few game recap coming up after the game tomorrow. Penguins play the Islanders. That'll be a big game. Is that one of those games where they say there's 3 points on the table?
There's probably a lot more than 3 points on the table this week. Yeah, this is a big game.
It's a big game, and you know what, Robbie? This team, when they get up for the harder teams to play against, I just think that they're going to steamroll Patrick Waugh and the Islanders, and it's going to be a good game, and they're going to get the 8 points on the table that they need or whatever it is.
Yep.
And we're going to be getting into a little bit of a thicker part of the schedule here. Finally, it seems like they go 5 days without playing and then have a back-to-back.
Yeah.
And now we're finally getting into like, you know, every other day, every 2 days, going to have some games coming up. And
well, I mean, yeah, after this week, they're headed out your way.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm going to the game actually.
Oh, nice.
It's like in 10 days or something. I think they play in Seattle
29th, yeah.
the 28th or 29th or something. I'm going to be at that game.
Nice. Get rowdy.
Oh yeah, I always do.
Cause a scene. I want to see you on television.
Getting escorted.
Hey,
yeah.
there he goes. There he goes.
That would be so iconic. I would put that as my profile picture.
We'll just have to have somebody deliver your headphones and mic to the jail cell, and we can just do a recap right from the jail cell.
Yeah, or in like the drunk tanks that they have under the building there.
Yes.
But yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, they're coming out west. Oh God, they just need to keep. We say this every week, Robbie. They need to get some. They need to start stacking up some points here. They need to get. They need to go on a heater. Is what they need to go on. They need to go on like an 8-game winning streak, and it can't all be Sid, man. Sid's the only guy on the score sheet every single night.
Yep. Yeah, but it's got to be somebody different.
Malkin looks old.
Yeah,
he looks really old right now. Carlson and Letang are out of sync. When they're passing it to each other, when they get the opportunity to play together, it's hopping off one of their sticks. It's in their feet. God, something needs to change, Robbie. But let's hope that they figure it out and they pull a rabbit out of their ass and they go on like an 8-game heater.
I would be all for that.
All right. Well, for Robbie Noggle, I am Snail. This has been another Mailbag episode. We will be back with you on Tuesday. Smell you later.